What's up, guys? Welcome back to the WWLA YouTube channel. We are going to pick up where we left off at, which was in Theodore DeBry's Discovering the New World. Super critical to have this in your collection, especially if you are interested in the history of African Americans, so-called the history of blacks. You're going to want to pick this up because this will give you a different understanding of what we've all been taught to believe up until this point. So I can't stress this enough that the images that you see in Theodore DeBry's Discovering the New World becomes easier to process when you understand that these are the people that you are witnessing in the illustrations. So when we look at the customs, the traits, the phenotype, the characteristics, we get to understand who they're really talking about. Dodge the whitewash, dodge all the hijack, and get straight to what the real information is. So just wanted to show this again, just to kind of reiterate who we are discussing. This is Satyriona here, okay? And I wanted to break into this book because I thought that this book says something that kind of hit home in a modern respect. This book is Slavery in Indian Country. Slavery in Indian Country by Christina Snyder. So just gonna break this open real quick. Y'all can see this is cataloged in the Library of Congress. And I just wanted to read one quick part for you guys, just to kind of like, give a visual. Because I don't think this really applies to the culture of the Native American or the Hollywood depiction, But I'm just start off right here. So it says, so communities reproached unaccomplished warriors while successful men expected such social accolades as the affection of local women and increased stature within the community. According to one early 18th century trader, the beauties are so engrossed by the men of action, by great warriors and expert hunters, that ordinary fellows who are slothful and unfortunate are obliged to take up with very mean stuff. The society of warriors was a strictly ranked hierarchy wherein a man achieved status through accumulation of plunder, scalps, and captives. In 1791, a visitor to the Creeks observed, "Every individual is at liberty to choose whether or not he shall engage in any warlike enterprise. But the rage of the young men to acquire war names and the thirst of plunder in the elder ones and leaders are motives sufficient to raise gangs of volunteers to go in quest of hair, scalps, and horses at any time when they are disengaged from hunting." Okay, listen to this part. When men presented captives or scalps to their communities, they received new honorific titles and tattoos commemorating their feats. All right, tattoos, Native American, modern day Native Americans tatted up. Hold on. In the words of one Chickasaw, such booty proved that a warrior was a true man. For Native men, rank was constantly on display. Rank was constantly on display for Native men. Who does that? Who does that? Like, always on display. Bust down, always gotta be bust down. Always gotta be flashy, fly, fitted. I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to just break out with that, you know what I'm saying? But that's in this book right here, Slavery in Indian Country. Y'all can pick this one up too. You might be able to find this on Amazon, or any other book dealer. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it's like, that's really something that we can see in modern society. You go to an NBA game and look courtside, and who gonna be the most flashy? Who are the people that's gonna be the most flashy? Who gonna be bust down courtside? Who? So that's interesting. But just to get back into not even ancient, get back into the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, which is where this book is going to take us. The Mound Builder civilization, the Mississippians. So that's who we're talking about. Satyriona, the Mississippians. Okay, the dominating culture in North America, from the Midwest to as far south as the Gulf, going into Florida. These are these people. So when we look back on these horticulturalist societies, you have to realize that in 1492, which is when the Europeans arrived in the Americas, they didn't see complex systems like this. Paris, Venice, Rome, they're not producing fruits and vegetables on a consistent basis year round. This is not something that they're used to. When we go into Theodore de Vries, Discovering the New World, we have a scene here that I'm going to quickly read on. The industry of the Floridians in storing the products of the harvest. There are in this country many islands that produce an abundance of various fruits, which they harvest twice a year. These fruits the Indians take home in boats. Then they stack them up in storehouses, which are simple yet large and built of mud and small stones. They are roofed with thick branches and soft earth, suitable for this purpose. Usually these storehouses are built under a hill or rock close to a river. Okay, river people. Remember, Mississippi River is the main vein. Okay, so, we like to think about the Nile Valley, the Nile River in Africa, East Africa. But we're all from North America. So, the river system is pretty important here. Something that kind of, we let go over our heads. Anyways, back to what we were reading. In order to prevent the fruit from rotting, the sun's rays must not penetrate the building. Apart from the fruit, the Indians put their other food that they wish to keep. They go and take it whenever they need it without any disagreement among themselves. Let me read that again. So they go and take it whenever they need it without any disagreement among themselves. So these village states had a system of agriculture where people could come and take what they needed as they please. If we keep reading, it says, it could be wished that such a lack of avarice prevailed among Christians, and then their minds would be less tormented. It could be wished that such a lack of avarice prevailed among Christians, and then their minds would be less tormented. So remember, these are not Christians. Satyriona is not a Christian, not a Muslim. That's important. That's important to understand. Okay, so what is avarice? Because it said it could be wished that such a lack of avarice prevailed among Christians. Avarice, extreme greed for wealth or material gain. Europeans are coming from a place that has no clean water supply. Crops are very scarce, if any. It's raw sewage, and many times in the city streets. You know, these people are looking for whatever they can take to make some type of better life for themselves. It's important to know. So let's take a look at preparations for the feast. At a certain time of the year, the Indians are accustomed to celebrate feasts among themselves, and for this purpose, they have specially chosen cooks. They begin by putting a large round clay pot, so well made that the water can boil in it just as well as in our vessels. This is the Europeans talking. On some logs, which they light, while one of them holds a fan to encourage the flames. The chief cook throws what has to be cooked into the great pot. Others pour water, which has been brought to them, in a vessel shaped like a bucket into a hole for washing. Another uses a flat stone to crush the herbs to season the food. So seasoned food, that's big too. Y'all know black people love seasoned food. And meanwhile, women are busy sorting out what is necessary for the cooking. In spite of these great feasts, the Indians are very moderate in their eating, thanks to which they live to a great age. So that's something we probably don't do right now. One of these chiefs asserted to me that he was 300 years old and that his father, whom he pointed out to me, was 50 years older than he. It is true to say that on looking at him, he seemed all skin and bones. The Indians put us Christians to shame, for we, by overindulgence in food and drink, shorten our lives considerably. We should attend the barbarian school in order to learn temperance. So the Americans, the Indians, looked at the Christians or the Europeans as completely, disorganized, undisciplined, barbaric in a sense, greedy, gluttonous. Just, they didn't have it. It came from nothing. So when you have something, you're gonna, want more of it. So I just wanted to show something off of the Britannica about Mississippian culture. So when you hear mound builder, think Mississippian. It's the same thing. So Mississippian is a good generalized term for us that are Cherokees and Chickasaws and Choctaws and Yamasee. Since we're from North America and the Mississippi River is, what all the trade comes from, the rich soil comes from, it's good terminology to kind of put into your vocabulary. If you want to describe yourself, or if you want to get away from terminology like Black and African American, you can specify, geographically where you come from, where your ancestors come from. Be proud of that. But back to what we were about to read. So the Mississippian culture, the last major prehistoric development, cultural development in North America. So understand that the mounds that are in North America are prehistoric. That means that this is before documented history. Okay? Prehistoric. These people are not prehistoric. This is 1500s, 1600s. So connect the people of the 1500s to the prehistoric mound sites, okay? Lasting from about 700 CE, Common Era, to the time of the arrival of the first European explorers. The last one, began around 700. It spread over a great area of the southeast and mid-continent in the river valleys of what are now the states of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Louisiana, and scattered extensions northward into Wisconsin, Minnesota, Great Plains. This vast network of trade, commerce, bartering. So it says that the culture was based on an extensive cultivation of corn, like we mentioned before, beans, squash, other crops, which resulted in a concentration of population in towns along the riverine bottomlands. Okay? So politically and culturally, each large town or village dominated a satellite of lesser villages. Government was in the hands of the priest rulers. Priest rulers. I'll show you a priest ruler. So remember we talked about the sun worship? These are priest rulers. Thus, the complexes might be called theocratic village states. Moreover, warfare, which was apparently frequent, so we see warfare happening with Satriona, a lot of Atina, Patano, Tuscaloosa. Apparently frequent, produced larger alliances and even confederacies. So let me read that from start to finish. Moreover, warfare, which was apparently frequent, produced larger alliances and confederacies. This is big time stuff. In the last video, remember we mentioned the European states that, the Spanish came over here, took over, smashed on Montezuma, came into the islands, smashed on everybody there, came onto the mainland North America, smashed everybody, Satriona, all these big time people that have these large networks of armies, resources, food, rituals, and organization just somehow got dismantled. That's what the story is. That's the narrative that is pushed. But how can that be? How can that be when we see how sophisticated the society was? Far more sophisticated than anything the European had seen prior to arriving in the Americas. Just to give a little additional information, I wanted to show this right here. Maybe it could be clear, but it says Tamarica. So we'll touch on that and the many different variations of the term America, where it came from, because most of us think that Amerigo Vespucci is where the name America comes from, but here there's Tamarica, there's Tamarica, Tamari, there's Amaricapana, and these are the ancient names of America before European contact. We'll get into that, but I just wanted to mention. So circling back to the war between the sun worshipers and the Christians, or the Mississippians and the Europeans. Here, you could take a look at this scene. Remember, all these scenes, you could pull these up individually on Google. But let me just read what it says here. So the Indians pour molten gold into the mouths of the Christians. Along most of the coast of Darien, they are accustomed to eat human flesh, though some were afraid to eat the flesh of the Spaniards, thinking that even in their bodies it might do them harm. Those they caught alive, in particular the captains, they used to tie up by their hands and feet. They would throw them to the ground and pour molten gold into their mouths, saying, "Eat gold, Christian." And to further ill treat and humiliate them, with flint knives, some cut off an arm, some a shoulder, some a leg, and then roasting the meat on embers, they would eat it, dancing and singing. They would hang up the bones in their temples or in the chief's houses as trophies of victory. So take a look at this one. This is kind of like back and forth war between the Spaniards, the Christians, and the Indians. So let me read this real quick. So the Spanish punished the Indians. Such was the cruelty of the Spaniards to the Indians at the pearl fisheries that one morning at dawn the Indians assailed the Spaniards, made a bloody slaughter of them, and with dancing and leaping ate them, both monks and laymen. Some few escaped in a caravel that was lying in the Cumana River and sent to San Domenico to inform the governor of the rebellion. He immediately raised 300 soldiers under command of Diego del Campo. Approaching the scene of the rebellion, he ordered that all except the sailors should hide below decks, so that the Indians, seeing few Spaniards, would be tempted to come on board, supposing that they had come direct from Spain and were ignorant of the massacre. Accordingly, when the Indians asked from whence they came, they replied from Castile, and invited them on board the ship. The Indians were suspicious, but seeing so few Christians on board, were persuaded they were from Spain. The captain pretended not to know anything, received them kindly, and bartered for pearls, and entreated them by signs to go and fetch more pearls, as well as provisions from the ship. The Indians informed their cacique that the Christians were few and they could easily kill them all, upon which he ordered a great many of his men to return to the ship and to tempt the sailors to come ashore with promises of a great store of pearls for barter. When sufficient Indians were on board, the captain made with his soldiers rush up from their hiding places. Some they took prisoners, others they killed, and the rest jumped overboard. Those that were captured, the captain hanged from the yard arms to strike terror into the survivors, and thus he returned to Cambagua, leaving the islanders astonished and confused at such a spectacle. I hope that over the course of the last 3 videos that you've been able to make a connection with the people, with Saturniona, with the culture, and I hope that you've been able to see yourself in this history, because the history that is promoted to us now, we don't see ourselves. We're not the kings and queens of the Americas. But with this information, we are. So I hope that you guys stick around. I hope that you guys are entertained, are enlightened by the information. I hope that you've connected with this. We've laid the foundation with Theodore de Bry's Discovering the New World. This has allowed us to see what we haven't saw. Stick around because we have a really dope NFT drop. We're super excited for it. And we really want you guys to see it, because we're going to take this artifact and bring it into modern times So we're going to view this artifact in a way that you haven't seen sculptures viewed before. We're super excited. We hope you stick around. WWLA. Catch you on the next one.